And yet, this would not be the last time that the Double Dragon series would be used to create a fighting game. In 2002, another one would be released upon a nonplussed public. One that would be unrelated to everything but the first game in the franchise in the loosest way possible. That game was Rage of the Dragons, developed by Evoga Entertainment.
Viva Mexico!
Yes, Ramon, they were a Mexican developer. Now would you get out of here?
Cut up!
Yeah, whatever. Anywho, Evoga didn't have that much experience with fighting games, or games in general for that matter. The only game that they had made up to that point was Evolution Soccer, which was released in arcades with little to no promotion and had limited success. Nevertheless, the company decided to make a fighting game based on the aforementioned Double Dragon fighting game, specifically the Neo Geo port. As such, they decided to create the game for the Neo Geo, and in 2001 they set out to claim the rights for the original intellectual property. However, they discovered that the rights had already been claimed by a development group called Million, a subsidiary of Atlas, which was made up of former Technos employees. Rather than start a lengthy legal battle for the rights with the people who essentially made the series, Evoga decided to leave Million to their own devices and create an homage to the Neo Geo game, rather than a direct sequel. My guess is that they would have been creamed in court anyway, but it was still sporting of them. Million went on to use the Double Dragon license to create the GBA remake of the first game in 2004, which in my opinion was fantastic, so the incident was truly a matter of great justice as far as I'm concerned. But I'm going off tangent, so I'll get back to Evoga. After acquiescing to Atlas and Company, Evoga decided to create a game based on the general scenario of the original brawler. Some of the names and parts of the scenario would be used, but for the most part, the game would feature an original story, gameplay system, and roster of characters. In order to do this, Evoga enlisted the help of Noise Factory, an offshoot of the then defunct SNK, and agreed to let Playmore publish their game for the Neo Geo. In the following year, they released Rage of the Dragons for the Neo Geo. Rage of the Dragons has the typical 4-button setup that most Neo Geo fighting games share, with 2 weak punch and kick attacks and 2 strong punch and kick attacks. Players have the ability to dash, dodge, and roll to move or evade attacks, and to hop or super jump by either tapping up in a direction or tapping down then up respectively. The game focuses on a 2-person tag system, in which one character can tag out to his or her partner by pressing right kick and hard punch. The character who is tagged in will rush onto the screen and attack the opponent while her or his partner runs off. If the attack is successful, they are able to combo off of that attack. Furthermore, players can perform a special team attack called the Tag Out Rush by pressing quarter circle forward, right click and hard punch, which uses 1 level of meter. They can also follow up with a move called the Team Duplex by repeating the motion at the end of the rush, although that will cost another level. All tag actions except for the Team Duplex are controlled by the Partner meter, which is located between a team's life bars. The whole meter is used whenever a character tags out or rushes an opponent, and it refills slowly, so tagging can only be used from time to time. Also, the active character can surrender and concede the round to the opponent by pressing all 4 attack buttons and using the full partner meter. It causes the round to end, but it passes on all remaining stocks to the second fighter. Another important mechanic is the first impact, performed by pressing hard punch and hard kick. It's a slow, heavy strike that launches the victim into a tailspin and begins a dial combo that does a fair amount of damage. The combo can be performed on the ground and in the air, and an air combo makes the victim float a bit, which can leave them open for a special or super move. The destructible objects return from the Neo Geo game as well, and although they aren't as impressive, they are far more useful. They act as barricades, standing on both sides of the screen, and once a character is knocked into one of them, they freeze in the air, which gives their opponent a chance to attack. However, the barricade can only be used twice before it breaks, and the second use has a smaller opening for attack than the first. Although most of the important moves are unattached to the super meter, said meter has uses as well. It has 3 levels, and in addition to the Tag Out Rush and Team Duplex, it can be used for level 1 or 2 supers or counterattacks, performed by back and CD. which bounce your opponent against a wall or barricade. Also, some moves have the bounce property on counterattacks, similar to the counter wire attacks from the King of Fighters series, although the victims collapse against the wall rather than violently bounce off of it towards their assailants. Between the final impact, the bounce provided from the barricades, and the tag-out rush, the game provides relatively easy ways to string together combos, and a lot of the gameplay revolves around working your opponent into the corner and staying away from it, especially at the start of a match. However, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Positioning is an important part of fighting games, and I believe that any variation of that is a good thing. The only thing that I would hold against the game, and what most people notice the most, is the character design and sprite work. They are serviceable, and the sprite work is actually quite nice, but the designs themselves don't quite catch one's attention. To be fair, the idea was to reference the Double Dragon series rather than rip it off wholesale, and Evoga accomplished that by reinterpreting the original story and a few key characters while introducing a secondary roster. But the new characters lack distinction. They're memorable enough once you actually get to play the game, and some of them even seem to handle like characters from other more popular series, but they don't jump out at you, and I think that it hurt the game in the long run. Speaking of other games, 4 of the characters, Jimmy, Elias, Lynn, and Jones, appeared in Power Instinct Matri Melee as unlockable guest stars, although that fact wasn't very advertised during the initial release. They retain most of their moves aside from the tag and first impact techniques, and they play much like their original incarnations, which makes sense since the game was developed for Atlas by Noise Factory. What's sad is that 2002 wasn't exactly a good year for fighting games, and it still didn't do well. Evoga eventually shut down in 2004 after creating the first Japanese-Mexican interdeveloped game and accomplishing little else. Wait a tick. I think I've noticed something here. Technos made a Double Dragon fighting game and they went under in a year. Then Evoga made one and they filed for bankruptcy in 2 years. One if you consider that they had to at least supervise some part of the guest appearances in Matri Melee, which came out in 2003. This can only mean one thing. Double Dragon fighting games are cursed. Aspiring developers, if for some inane reason you're watching this, hear my words. No matter how much you enjoyed Rage of the Dragons, or Double Dragon for the Neo Geo, or even the original Double Dragon, don't make a fighting game based on the series for the sake of your financial security. And if you're already making one, it might be too late for you. But here's some advice. Use the actual game as a base. Not the Neo Geo game, or the Homage, or the movie, or the cartoon, or the Marvel comic, or the serial knockoff, the actual games. You know, the ones with Billy and Jimmy fighting the Black Warriors, using semi-realistic punches and kicks, and taking the weapons of the fallen and using them as their own, actually sticking to the storyline. That might actually work out for you guys. Actually scratch that. You're still doomed.